Hello everyone, and welcome back to Water Moon Cards. Thanks for joining me today for this look at my collection of historic, recolored, and redrawn decks. So I'm recording this on a whim because I'm in the mood to, and I have the intention of recording another video before this and releasing it ahead of time on historic decks that are more facsimiles and true restorations. But I'm hoping in that video that I remember to say that if you're not into that look, if you don't like, those limited color palettes or art styles or the ways that faces are drawn or anything like that, there are other options out there. And so that's what I wanted to look at today. Now I will say that a lot of these are out of print, unfortunately, and some of them kind of come in and out of print. So as of the time I'm recording this video, I'll let you know what's in print or not, but if you're interested in these, there's always the secondhand market too. So with that, we'll jump right in. And I'm going to go roughly in historical order, but maybe not entirely. So we'll see how this plays out. So I have 8 historic decks to share with you today, and one honorable mention that I'll get to at the end. The first one I'm going to start with is this Tarot Visconti Sforza. This is an edition specifically from Editions Fabry, which is a French company, in partnership with Lo Scarabeo. And this particular iteration is out of print. It was released in 2000 and 2002 are the copyrights on the box. That's what it looks like. There is an updated version of this that I'll talk about in a second, but this specific version is almost standard tarot size. It's a little narrow, and I originally got interested in the Visconti when I started to learn about tarot history and its importance as one of the earliest decks that we have an almost complete copy of. But I really didn't like any of the facsimile decks that just take pictures of the existing copies in museums, because the existing copies are really in poor condition. A lot of the cards, the gold foil has peeled off and you just see the sizing underneath, so it's like a red tinge all over the card. A lot of the details are lost. A lot of the pigments have faded or flaked off, and I just don't enjoy facsimiles of decks that are in such poor condition. So that's really why I wanted to have something that was fully restored so that I could appreciate the original artwork and the designs of this deck more fully. And it is completely redrawn. So that's why it's in this video. It looks very much and maybe the most like the original of any of the decks I'm going to show you today, but it's completely redrawn and recolored based on the original. So that's why I'm including it here. And it was originally, a luxury item made for the wealthy commissioners of this deck. It may have been a dowry gift. I originally had a copy of this from Lo Scarabeo that had gold foil stamping on it. And the original deck is missing the Devil and the Tower cards. And so every version of the Visconti that you'll see, no matter who the publisher is or, whether it's a true to size deck, the original cards are quite large, or a smaller deck, most of them have some kind of redrawn version of the Devil, the Tower, and I think there's also maybe a page missing from the original. And so the artists kind of have to decide what they're going to do. And after doing some more reading and understanding about the history of the Visconti, I really wanted a version of it that had more true to type Devil and Tower cards. So this is the Devil card from this version. This is an artist rendering. And then the Tower card, also from this deck. Now, the more updated version of this deck has more Marseille type Devil and Tower cards. So I'll try to insert a picture here so you can see what those look like. Quite different. And to me, they never really visually jived with the deck. And then I sort of figured out why, is because the art style is just different. The depiction of those cards is different for decks that are contemporary with this one. So that's why I have this version. I also have it in a mini size. This is actually the version I was able to find first on the used market. Both of these I got on the used market. And so this one is the exact same deck. It just comes in a little itty bitty size, travel size. And it's cute. I actually like reading with this. I take it out because it's convenient to use it in public or for bigger spreads if I want to lay out, 15, 20 cards. I actually have room to do that with these smaller ones. It's an interesting addition, and I really appreciate the artist's careful attention to detail. I feel like they did a really good job of staying true to the style of the deck, but also, like I said, updating it with more historic or historically accurate Devil and Tower cards. And a little fun fact is that this tiny booklet, it's just a single little pamphlet. This is by Giordano Berti, who is one of my favorite modern historic card reproducers. So it's really cool that he was included in the production of this particular tarot for Lo Scarabeo. I do wish Lo Scarabeo would publish a version of this with the cold foil stamping and the original Devil and Tower cards that they put out, but they have not done that yet, so this is fine for now, and I'll keep an eye out for, you know, maybe later editions that have those features. So the Visconti is one of the oldest decks in my collection, and so fast forward to a couple hundred years to the 16 and 1700s, and we get to the big three. And these were decks that were really known as being earlier examples of kind of mass market decks. The first one I'll talk about is the Conver. So the Conver deck was originally released around 1760 in Marseille, and it has your typical kind of block print looking cards, wood blocks, and then the colors are stenciled in. And I had a couple of different versions of this deck over my earlier collecting days. I had the CBD, which is based on this deck, and I had the Fournier version that has brightly colored backgrounds, and all of the figures are redrawn in this kind of 3D effect, and I actually found that really creepy and off-putting. So I sold my vintage copy of the Fournier. I think I sold my CBD tarot in a lot with a bunch of other decks. I didn't like the CBD because it had really harsh white backgrounds and really bold colors, bold primary colors and very dark blacks and so forth. So what we're looking at here is the Mamanmiyuki Tarot. This is out of Japan, and it was originally produced in 2013. You can still get copies of this. I've seen it on eBay. And yeah, it's by a Japanese producer. I don't know a whole lot about them. The booklet that comes with this is all in Japanese, and I haven't bothered to translate it, but I just love this, you know, fully redrawn, but historically sensitive recoloration. So what I like about this is that it has these softer taupe backgrounds, so it looks a little bit like an aged deck. The faces are really beautiful. They're sweet and innocent, and I really like them. And then I just love the coloration that this artist has used. So you get much deeper blues, like navy blues. You get more of a forest green in a lot of the cards. A few of the cards have a lighter kind of Kelly green to them, which I don't love as much, but most of the greens are pretty dark. And then this yellow is a nice, rich, soft yellow. It's not an in-your-face bright yellow. And the red is really saturated and lovely. So it's more jewel tones and less kind of primary colors. And I also like the desaturated blacks. They're more like grays in this deck, and that helps the color come out. So I like the color balance. I love the line work, and I really like the faces in this much better than, I also had a Conver facsimile. I think I might have had one, or something similar to it. And I didn't like the facsimile. I didn't like any of the, you know, computerized kind of redrawn versions of the cards, but I do really like this. It almost looks like it's been colored in with colored pencil, really dark or something. I don't know. It's just a nice, it's an appealing soft palette to me. And it's a good reader also, very clear, and I really like it. So yeah, that's the Mamanmiyuki based on the Conver deck. All right, our second of the big three would be the Dodal deck, 1701-ish. All my dates are probably approximate. And for that, I have the Playing Marseille by Ryan Edward. Now this is where things start to like stray off from, you know, true historic redrawings into kind of a different approach, I'll say. But here's the deal. Ryan Edward made this deck, and it has French pips, but it has Marseille style face cards, which is where the name Playing Marseille comes from. He sort of attributes Dodal, but he says he has other influences. But when I look at a Dodal and then I look at these cards, I really get strong Dodal impression. So these cards are very snarky. They're very, I don't know, opinionated. They're very gossipy. They're sarcastic. They're grumpy. You know, I mean, look at that sun. He's just like, yeah, what do you want? I love the faces in this deck. So, and I really like his coloration. He's kind of done this like messy, you know, true to form, the ink didn't stay in its lines kind of thing to make it look more historic. But then he's exaggerated some of the expressions and exaggerated the line work in an interesting kind of almost comical way. And he's added all these playing card touches to their costumes. So the faces are Dodal. The costumes are a little bit, you know, more playing card leaning. And maybe you wouldn't consider this in this, you know, the theme of this video, but I do. And I feel like I have a Dodal even though without having a Dodal. One of the things that bothers me a lot about certain Marseille decks, historic Marseille decks, is that the flesh tones on the white people kind of look like shrimp salad that's been left out in the sun. You know, they're very intense pink, and they really are unappealing. The flesh tones in this deck, first of all, you'll see that they do vary, and also they're just a little bit more, I don't know, believable, realistic somehow. So I appreciate that, and I find the characters a lot more relatable because of it. So yeah, that's The Playing Marseille by Ryan Edward, and this is in print from US Games. And our third offering, or, you know, swap out, is going to be for the Noblet of 1650, the Jean Noblet Tarot, also a classic Marseille deck. And this one is by a French artist. Her name is Ash La Estrella, is how she styles herself on the internet. Editing Luna here with a pronunciation correction. I have since learned that this artist pronounces her own name Estrella, not Estrella, and thanks to Ina at Taproot Tarot for pointing that out. This is a beautiful and fun and very colorful version of the Noblet. So the arrangements of the pips and the kind of stylization of the figures is based on the Noblet Tarot. However, you'll see she's very much taken creative license here, and she's updated the colors, and she's put in famous people in her deck. So we have Amy Winehouse here as the Cavalier de Coupe, or the Knight of Cups. And you'll see some others soon. What I love is that she's, you know, really gone for it with the color palette. And I was looking for a brightly colored, kind of fun, cheerful Marseille, and I was happy to find this one for a variety of reasons. You know, it's diverse, it's a bit queer, it's bright, it's got different flora and you know, things on the pips, which is really fun. So like the coin suit is actually cowrie shells, which were used in a wide number of cultures and countries before colonialism as their main currency. So that's a cool touch. And then she's included, you know, people that I do know. I don't know every single person in this deck, but I know most of them. So that's Michael Jackson as the magician. This is Marie Antoinette as the empress. And the color palette is fun. The color palette does not necessarily stay exactly the same for all cards in one suit. So if that would bother you, then it's, you know, it's something to be aware of. But I like the mix and match approach of this. So yeah, there's different, you know, here's a poppy instead of whatever flower would normally be there. And then she's got these big like tropical plants on some of the cards. And I really like it. There's Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly from the Back to the Future series. A very sassy looking death card. And I just appreciate that this is different and that it brings in a lot of different things to my collection while also still being, you know, I still consider this representative of the Noblet. It's the model that she picked for her cards. So I think that's really cool. Here's Steve Jobs as the King of Coins. So yeah, that again is the Estrella Tarot, first published, I think, in 2021, and this is the second printing, 2022, which is still available from Ash's website. And I will link all these in the show notes, the blog post that goes with this video. All right, next up, we're gonna go a little retro, and I have the Tarot Classic for you. This was actually my very first Marseille deck that I bought. When I first found out that Marseille, well, basically anything other than the Pamela Coleman Smith tarot existed, and then started learning about Marseille, I thought, oh, that's so cool. I want to get a, and then I started looking at Marseille decks, and I thought they were ugly, really, really ugly. I didn't like the block printing. I didn't like the 3-color primary palette. And it wasn't until I saw this that I thought, oh, okay, there are some Marseille decks out there that maybe I would jive with. And this is one of them. This was printed in 1974, released by US Games. Stuart Kaplan incorrectly relates this to the Claude Bordel historic tarot, but that is actually incorrect. It is based on a tarot by Mueller, we think, is the correct accreditation, and published by a Swedish printer called Schaffhaus, and that's credited on the Two of Coins. Schaffhaus is also credited on some Bordel decks, so it's not the Two of Coins that proves this is not that, but it's really the redrawn faces. And if you look at this, you look at the faces and the line work here, and then you look at that Mueller deck, then you can see this really is a redrawing of that deck and a recoloration. And this one looks to me like it was colored in by a kid who was really good at coloring with crayons. It's got this like waxed crayon sort of look to the coloration, and I really like it. It's got a nice variety of colors to it, and the colors are soft. So the red is not red, it's pink. And the other colors are kind of soft springtime versions rather than, you know, in-your-face primaries. I also love, just this is a feature of this deck, not the recoloration of it, but the way that the wands are drawn. I really enjoy the batons, sorry. And then in this deck, you also get these elaborate costumes that really do look like playing cards, kind of like the Playing Marseille. So I like that aspect of it. It's just, you know, a different look. The cups are very round, and the expressions are nice and soft and open. It's sort of a friendly looking deck to me, and I enjoy it. Here's the Ace of Cups, one of my favorites from Swiss decks. It looks like a giant, you know, Jello mold or something. I think Robin from Toadstool Tarot once made a comment about that, and it's kind of stuck in my mind. So yeah, this is unfortunately out of print. I hope US Games will actually bring it back now that Marseille's, you know, kind of reestablished itself in the mind of tarot readers these days, and a lot of people are talking about it and using it. I'm really hoping that US Games can find a way to reprint it, because it's a fun deck and it's pretty and I like it. So speaking of the Claude Bordel deck that Tarot Classic is not based on, I also have a deck that is based on the Claude Bordel, and that is the Angel Tarot from Japan from around 1980, I believe. And this is another Stuart Kaplan production. We'll have a couple more in this video, but produced in Japan by the Angel Playing Card Company, and that's why it's called the Angel Tarot. It has nothing to do with, you know, Christian angels or angel guides or any of that. But it's really nice. I love the autumnal color palette of this deck, and the redrawing is really fine and skillfully done. And I love this color palette. It's, you know, it's olive greens and forest greens and these lovely sumptuous browns that are kind of have an auburn quality. They have a little bit of red in them. This red is really eye-catching, but it's not harsh. And this gold color is really soft. So yeah, I love it. And you'll see that the pips are actually sort of Marseille, but not the Marseille pattern. And they also reference the French suits. So you get the Three of Cups here, but you also get a heart in the middle. And the same is true with the face cards. This is the King of Coins. Captain calls it King of Pentacles, but it's the King of Coins, but he's also got a diamond up here. So you get both the French and the tarot suits, or the Italian suits, and yeah, and a different arrangement on the pips. So it's got a lot going for it. Unfortunately, this is also out of print. I don't know who technically owns the copyright on this anymore. I don't know how Japanese copyright works. And so even though Stuart Kaplan was involved, I have no idea whether, you know, his company, US Games, could potentially reprint this or not. It would be so cool if anybody would. The cardstock is amazing, and I like this a lot. It also came, if you're looking for this on the market, it also came in a split top box that is more this kind of a shape. So it's wide, and then the cards are in two piles. And that box typically has like a blonde white lady on the front, and it says Angel Tarot on it. That is the exact same deck as this one. If you're looking for this, you know, just know that there's two versions out there packaged differently, but it's the exact same deck. In fact, I think, yeah. And there's the booklet that comes with it. So that's not the picture on the front of the box, but it does come with this booklet as well. And then, of course, the booklet is all in Japanese because this was made for the Japanese market. So there you go. Angel Tarot, based on the Burdell by the Angel Playing Card Company and Stuart Kaplan. All right, and now we're starting to get a little further afield again into some wackier recolorations. So next up I have the Marshmallow Marseille by Wandering Oracle, Georges. And this is based on a historic deck, but I didn't even know that when I first got this. I picked this one up fairly early on. I think, you know, I said the Tarot Classic was my first deck. I think my honorable mention was my second, and so maybe this one was my third in the Marseille style. And I just love the wonderful rich color palette. This one has a lot of colors in it, so it's color-wise, it's not close to its progenitor, but it is based on the Tarot de Trieste, also known as the Vala Tarot from the late 1700s or early 1800s. So, and that's the line work. So what this artist has done is the Vala Tarot was a little bit skinnier than this. So he's just added a little bit of scenery to the left and right, but the figures are drawn exactly as they were in the Vala. And then they've recolored it using all these beautiful colors, springtime colors, summertime colors. You know, you've got pinks and corals and peach and lemon, and I'm making myself hungry, and all different shades of purple and all different shades of green, and, you know, these beautiful, again, cheerful, soft faces. And then the pips are kind of fun too. They did take a little bit of liberties with the pip arrangements and some of the embellishments on there. And then you may have noticed that the face cards, you know, the number and then the title are just kind of, they move around depending on where what the card's composition is. So this number is in the upper left with the title on the right. This one's got the title on the left and the number on the right. So if that bothers you, you know, just know that that's kind of the way this is. This also has a callback to its Bolognese origins with the little extra dots of ink on some of the cards, like this. That's not a printing error, that's intentional. And usually it's red spots. Yeah, so the devil card has the little red spots going up and down. So that's just the way some of these older Italian Bolognese decks were, and this artist has included that little detail in this reimagining of this deck. But I love it. It's so sweet and colorful and fun. Unfortunately, it's not in print right now. The artist does occasionally reprint these. So I don't know when the last printing was. I've kind of been out of the loop on that. But there's been at least 2 or 3 printings of this. So maybe, you know, find their mailing list, find their Etsy page, sign up for notifications. Who knows, it could come back in print at some point. And I have also seen this on the secondhand market. So if you really, really want it, you know, I think being patient and looking on eBay and maybe some of the tarot trade groups, you could probably pick up a copy pretty easily. So yeah, that is the Marshmallow Marseille based on the Vala Tarot. All right, we have one more recasting, and this is the Spanish Tarot from Fournier, and this is based on the tarot by Giuseppe Ottone in the Liguria Piedmontese region of Italy. So it is an Italian deck, even though it says Spanish Tarot on it. It's produced by a Spanish company, Fournier. And the copy that I have is a vintage copy, but you can still get reprints today that's still in print from Fournier, so it's just a slightly different production. And it's really, really beautiful. So I mentioned before that I also had the La Tarot de Marseille from Fournier with colored backgrounds, and I didn't really like it. It was actually a little too garish for me. What I love about this deck is it actually has taupe backgrounds and then rather garish colors for the costumes, and the pips on this are just, they just kill me. The choices that they picked for these pips, they're basically color coded, which is kind of nice in that the wands are all this green color and the swords are all this blue and purple. So that's kind of fun. And I just really like the color choices. Very bold, so not quite as soft and springtimey as some of the other decks that I've shown you. And I like the faces. I like the attitude. Again, just like the Dodal faces, these throw like tons of shade. I feel like everybody's gossiping about everybody else in this deck and, you know, comparing notes and making judgments on each other. And that's really fun when you do tarot reading, because then you can kind of say, well, you know, the person in your life who's doing this thinks this, but that person over there is doing that. I really like what this brings to a reading. And it's also just, you know, it's fun, it's cheerful, it's pretty. I love the sweet little cups on here. You know, look at that sassy look on our Sota de Espadas, the Page of Swords. It's just so great. So yeah, and I love the variety of colors. It's not as colorful as the Marshmallow Marseille. It's a little bit more woodblocky and, you know, has specific colors, but it still has a variety of colors and more than you would find in a typical historic deck. So you've got orange and coral and red and lime green and medium green and dark green, you know, and a couple different shades of purple and several different shades of blue. So it's quite rich, and I think it looks great laid out in a spread together. I really enjoy working with it. So yeah, that's the Spanish tarot based on the Giuseppe Ottone from 1763. All right, and at the top of this video, I did mention an honorable mention, and so that's the last one I'm going to show you. This is the Tarot de Maria Celia by Leonard Jim Narciso, and this is not based on any specific tradition. It's, you know, a few different ones blended together, he says, but I wanted to show it because I think this was the very second Marseille deck that I got, and it holds a special place in my collection. Unfortunately, it's now out of print from US Games, and I'm really hoping that they will bring it back. It's just lovely. To me, it reminds me of stained glass. The backgrounds of the cards are atmospherically colored, so they're not real bright, but like you can see, all these cups are slightly blue tinged. The wands are slightly pinky orange, and let's see what the other ones are. The coins are slightly yellowy green, and then the swords are kind of pinky. And I love the way that the artist has drawn all the embellishments and flourishes on these. And then the people cards are kind of funny because they're sort of bobblehead-ish. It's not super exaggerated, but the heads are definitely bigger in proportion to the bodies. So it's kind of fun, and it adds just like a sense of humor and play in readings. I really enjoy it for that reason. And yeah, you can see, you know, maybe several different traditions if you're very familiar. This reminds me of a few different decks. Dodal for sure, but also some others. And I love the creative license that this artist has taken while staying true to, you know, some, like, still nodding to the historic reading on this. So I really like this deck, and I hope that US Games will reproduce it. I love the starry sky behind the death card. It's probably one of my favorite death cards. Yeah, it's so sweet. So that is the Tarot de Maria Celia, and I did edge mine in kind of a complementary gold color. I just thought that looked better than the white edges on this deck. One point that Ina from Taproot Tarot made, she did a video on kind of good starter decks that come with decent booklets, and this booklet is quite good, and I hadn't honestly paid it that much attention. I was focused on my big honkin', you know, kind of textbook guides to reading Marseille, but this one's quite good. So if you can pick up a copy, ask the seller if it comes with the booklet, because it's worth reading. Okay, so that is my overview of my Recolored Tarot de Marseille decks, and which ones they're based on. I'm wondering if you have any others that you like, or that I may not have or may have missed out on. I'd love to know about those, so please drop me a comment below, and until then, I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.